One of the most hated maps in Siege is Theme Park. This is even reflected in pro play with the recent removal of Theme Park from the competitive scene. It is inherently defender-sided due to the limited vertical capabilities on the primary sites and the wide range of possibilities when it comes to the flanks. But I don't want to waste too much time on an intro, so let's take a look at the default defensive setups and how you can attack them, so you can play it better in ranked. So starting off in Armory and Throne on the first floor, this is going to be the strongest site of all the sites on Theme Park. For the reinforcements, the standard reinforcements that you'll want to do for every Throne defense is to make sure that you grab all 6 walls that are on the inside of the site leading to exterior rooms. So that would be your yellow wall, barrel wall, and maintenance wall. Also make sure that somebody runs upstairs and grabs a split hatch as well. And lastly, you'll want to reinforce the dragon walls because this will prevent long angles from the maintenance hallway into the middle of the 2 sites. As far as the holes and rotates, you don't actually need to make rotates because there is the massive double door and the split hallway that you can rotate between the 2 sites. So you really only need feet holes next to the dragon door. This is going to allow player from fireplace to be able to contest a long angle onto the dragon door, and it allows anyone who's sitting in armory to contest the dragon walk-in as well. You can also make a line of sight here on the dragon stairs, and that way you can watch the gong entrance, and that way you can get some kills on some unsuspecting opponents. This site is pretty straightforward. Only half the site is able to be attacked from vertical, and that's the armory side. The other half, you do have breachable walls on both sides of Throne, but you can easily impact trick or bandit trick those walls, and you should be able to hold this site with only 3 people due to the limited entrances at Split and Dragon Door. If the attackers don't get any walls open, of course. To prevent those walls from being opened, you can bring Cade and Bandit to electrify all the walls, with Cade taking care of the yellow wall, putting Cade claws in spots that make it tough for the attackers to destroy the claws. Otherwise, if Cade is banned, you can also take multiple players with impacts and make holes above the barrels and maintenance walls to impact trick any ace, hibana, or thermite charges that might be placed on the wall. Your power positions are going to be fireplace and behind the throne. You can play either side of the throne as well, depending on the wall they attack. One of those impact players can be Wamai, and he can help stop nades from going over the breach when they attempt to remove denial off the wall. Mute is another strong operator for this site to deny drones entry into site from the 3 drone holes and from either the split or dragon door. And Azami is also very strong here because you can use those Kiba areas in the middle of the site to help fortify it. The last operator that works really well on the site is Goyo. Remember, his canisters delay 20 seconds per canister. So if you set 2 canisters on each of those entry points on Split and Dragon, you can burn up to 20 or 40 seconds from the Dragon and Split entrances. I don't want to dictate a whole lineup that you should use, but this is one of the strongest sites on Theme Park if you have multiple operators that can deny breach of the walls. Now, on to the next site, second floor, initiation and office. I would say that this site is the second strongest site on the map if there is a Mira available. It would be my third option though if there is no Mira. It is a pretty sturdy site. There's vertical nades and destruction from below only being possible on the office half of the site. There's no vertical possible on the initiation side of the site. So a lot of defenders will anchor on the initiation side of the site rather than in office. A lot of people also choose to contest the top of Dragon Stairs very heavily, but I don't think that's even necessary when you're defending this. And you're actually just providing an opportunity for attackers to isolate you and get a free kill. As with most sites, bring some form of denial, whether it's a Cade, Mute, or Bandit. It might not be the flashiest, but it is Rainbow Six Siege quote-unquote tactical gameplay, and it'll probably win you some games. So now for the reinforcements, there's some standard reinforcements that you'll want to do in a default hold. You want to make sure that you reinforce one of the cache walls. I personally prefer the left one because otherwise you're going to be exposed to the waiting double door from behind. Also reinforce the left control wall, the 2 initiation walls, the 2 yellow walls, the vault wall, and the left office wall facing waiting. For rotates, you want to make sure that you have a rotate next to coffee in between office and waiting, and obviously a rotate between initiation and waiting. You can make it a vaultable or a standing rotate, it doesn't really matter. Now regarding head holes, you probably want some head holes facing towards control next to that reinforcement that you put there, and you probably want head holes in cache. And the reason we want to do these head holes is to make sure that the attackers have multiple angles that they need to clear when they're entering the building. And lastly, and most importantly, you want to make sure that you make holes on the break room wall, so they can't just bring a thermite, swing it a break, and open the initiation wall by putting a thermite breach on the soft wall. Thermite is able to open that wall even if it's electrified, if that soft part of the wall is not broken. Now, I mentioned earlier that this site is strongest with a Mira on the board. You can place your Miras facing towards cache and control, and attackers are either forced to push into your Miras or avoid them altogether. They're great just even as a deterrence to pushing one side of the map, so you might actually force the attackers to push a different side. Your cache mirror can obviously see cache balcony and all of cache room, and it can also see part of top dragon. With head holes all across cache as well, you can see if they push up the hallway. And the initiation mirror can obviously see all of control, which is the window, the top dragon door, and of course the hatch drop. Now, if Mira isn't available, you might want to look into doing an extended hold, which is going to be moving into the other side of the map, moving into Bunks and top arcade. And you'll want to make sure that you have rotates for top arcade. That way you can contest break room and top arcade from one position. Going to open up the bunk hatch in case you need to drop late, and of course make a rotate into daycare and make a line of head holes so you can have a sight line into cafe. Of course, your player that is top arcade can contest the swing into break. They can contest the arcade stairs, and they can also contest the arcade window, and also contest cafe from deep inside a bunk. And if things get too hectic, they can drop the hatch, or they could always rotate back into the site. You can also open the split hatch and drop there if you need to, and you can have a player down there. If they are pushing from the cafe side, you can have a player holding split as they push the waiting door. All right, now on to the third site of Bunks and Daycare. We're going to start out by making a rotate between the two sites, which is kind of a staple in Rainbow Six. You want to make sure that you're not sealed off from one of the sites. Make a rotate top arcade. That way it's going to allow someone to play there, and they can hold break windows as well as top arcade. Make sure you reinforce this far left wall in the break room, and you want to do that because if they repel on that window, they can get a long angle through the hallway. Now reinforce the two walls on initiation. So your setup should look something like this so far. Then come over to daycare and reinforce the two middle walls. Make feet holes on the left side near the train and head holes on the right side. Then come over to top yellow and reinforce the two yellow walls. If you do want to do an extension, it is possible to make a rotate here, and then you would reinforce the cache walls. The reason we want those head holes as well, you want to place a shield here in the hallway, and you can use my discs to protect it by throwing it at various points in cafe and also outside the double door. Make sure you come into vault as well and reinforce this single wall. That way they just can't breach and walk onto the scaffolding. Gonna open the split hatch again in case you need to fall off the site. Gonna open the barrels hatch as well. And that's pretty much the setup that you'll want to do for a standard site setup. If you don't want to do an extension, then you can always reinforce this wall on top yellow as well. Be a good idea to have someone playing here at top arcade to watch the stairs and also able to swing on the window. And of course you want a player playing on mez so they can help with the stairs and also the window, and of course with break room as well. And if you want a little bit more added cover, you can reinforce this upper arcade wall so it protects you from that window. Have a player on top yellow as well to watch for the yellow stairs push, but also watch the hatch drop. One thing you're going to notice about this entire strip all the way through theme park is this is a hard floor, so you can't actually be naded from below. So that's why you're trying to hold these positions instead. Of course, if you are here in upper arcade, you can get naded from below, but it's very rare that the attackers are going to walk into lab and try to nade someone from below in this spot. And that's how you set up on Bunks. Now, I did mention that you could do an extended hold, so if you do still have a Mira up, then I would make sure that you do an extended hold, but you have the Mira playing the same positions that you had for the initiation defense. That way you can have two players on the extended hold, holding cache and control, and they can basically hold that down by themselves because they do have the Miras to assist them. And then you can have the other three players on the western side of the map, protecting for a yellow stairs push, a cafe push, and an arcade push. And if you don't have a Mira, you can still do an extend. If you have a castle, you can block off the doorways on showers, waiting double, and control, and you can reinforce the walls. That way it funnels them into doorways rather than letting them just breach through and walk through the soft walls. All right, for the next site of drug and lab, I'm just going to show you a quick setup that you can use if you have a castle and a mute. Make sure that you have a rotate between the sites again. That way you can watch the site window. That's one of the few spots where defenders could quickly hop in the window and get into the corner of drug, and they could potentially hide from anyone who's playing vertically. I also prefer making a vault rotate here on this far wall because it does provide some added cover. If you're crouched behind it, you can throw a C4 if they are attempting a plant near the window. And when we look at these walls, you don't necessarily need to reinforce those 2 hallway walls on the lab, but I would reinforce these 2 barrel walls. That way it prevents a long angle all the way from inside of barrels. Then I would go ahead and reinforce the 4 lab walls as well on the eastern side. The reason you want to do that is because if you don't reinforce all 4 walls, they can get angles from split. So you can see the sight lines. If that was all soft, those are the angles that the attackers could get from either bottom yellow or from split. And you can see from split, they can see all the way into the rotate and the 2 sights. So go ahead and seal those up. Now you're going to head upstairs and use the last 4 reinforcements on the yellow walls and on the initiation walls. The reason why we're doing that is just to try to funnel them into the waiting door. Of course, there's still going to be the vault wall, which is soft, but hopefully there's not going to be anyone that's going to try to attack that. And I would place a mute jammer on the top yellow wall. I would also use your mute jammers for denial here. So put one on the office drone hole. Castle's going to be castling that double door. And then, of course, reinforcing the 2 initiation walls. Head into break, and you can use a mute jammer behind this fridge. And that way, it'll stop any drones that will go straight through the drone hole. They have to kind of bounce at an angle if they want to get through there. And then, of course, you want to make easy movement up here. So make a rotate between bunk and daycare as if you are holding up here. You can do those same head holes as if you're holding this site. And, of course, you can come in here and make some vertical on the site in cafe, so you're going to be able to see the bathroom window jump in. You could also make vert on the bathroom door, and if you wanted to, you can make a rotate here onto scaffolding in case they start pushing from lockers. Of course, you want to come into upper arcade and you can make some vertical here. That way you can watch the double door entrance. That window should be castled. Also, that last mute jammer should be used near this window. For some reason, the destruction is very tough on this part of the floor, but this is the only angle that you can use from upstairs to try to deny the window jump in. So using an impact could clear that up and make it easier to see, but you can actually see the jump into the site window from upstairs. Granted, this window next to you is going to be castled. You can see using a C4 becomes a lot more clear, and you can still see that jump in all the way from upstairs. Don't use a C4 on it. Use an impact from below and then have the castle the arcade window. Okay, and as I mentioned, castle is the other operator that you want for this site. So you can reinforce the cafe door, also the arcade window, which I had just shown you on mute. Then you can come over to bunk and barricade the break door. That way it's just kind of like a small room that the attackers have to sit in if they do swing in a break. And then you have the waiting double that I would barricade as well. That way it kind of forces the attackers to use utility in order to push the vertical defenders. A nice bulletproof that you can use if you have castle upstairs as well is this one on scaffolding. You can see the top yellow hall, you can see bottom yellow, you can see into cafe as well. And the nice thing about it, even though you might think that you can shoot it from cafe door, there is part of this scaffolding equipment that blocks the bulletproof, and it can't necessarily be destroyed from outside easily. And of course, you can help make that vertical with a super shorty if you're a castle. So that's just a fun little pocket strat. You probably won't have to ever use this setup for drug and lab. It's not necessarily a default setup by any means, but it is something a little bit creative that you might be able to use with your stat to throw someone off guard. If you've made it this far and you've enjoyed the content so far, make sure that you subscribe and like this video because it really helps push this to more people. And that way we can create more like-minded individuals for easier games. Moving on to the attacking side, there's going to be a couple options for each site, but not everything is going to work. Theme Park is a tough map to attack, and any attack requires coordination in order to be successful. So here are some attacks that you and your squad might want to try out. Starting out on the most common site, which is going to be Armory and Throne, we're going to first talk about a yellow take, and then we're going to talk about a maintenance or barrels take. I think the yellow take is going to be more consistent for you, whereas maintenance is more direct and has less droning to do. All right, so this yellow take, first you're going to want to take vertical, and this is going to consist of droning out cache and control on the top floor. And you're going to want to make sure that you drone out, and if you find any roamers, try to isolate those roamers, and if there are no roamers, just take the space as quick as possible. So you'll be droning out the eastern side and working your way through cache into office eventually, and control and initiation. Once you've taken control of that top eastern side of the map, you can start making vertical on the site to get denial off of the wall. And of course, you want to continue droning through bunks and daycare and cafe to make sure there aren't any lingering roamers. Once you've droned out the entire top floor and there's no resistance, then you can have a gridlock or a nomad move through and cover the flanks. Eventually, the goal is to open up the yellow wall on throne and use the vertical to pressure any defenders that are in the armory side of the site. You can open the split hatch, that way you can cut off a rotate once you go into plant, and you're going to try to get a plant down on the pillar in the middle of the armory room. Now, I kind of want to do something different here and look at the roles of different operators and how they can be useful on this site. I think Fuse is really a strong operator for this attack, and you can also use a nomad or a gridlock to cover the 3 stairs that are flanked. And of course, I prefer a thermite for this site. So as a Fuse, you want to get into office. You don't necessarily need to open this with a breaching charge. I'm just trying to show you that you can put your first cluster charge there. That way you can get any denial off of the wall. So you can see the pucks, they fly out from right to left. There's 5 of them, and it should get any denial off the wall. Now, if you want to try to clear someone out of fireplace, you can come here to the corner, and you can place that cluster charge facing the drone hole. And what this is going to do, because those pucks fly right to left, you can see the first puck ends up in that corner of fireplace. The second one lands on the ledge, and that way you can try to clear someone out of that corner. This is going to be one of those power positions for the defenders. Next, if you want to try to clear a Cade Claw off the wall, you want to make sure that your cluster charge is here facing the eastern side. That way one of the pellets is going to go up on that ledge and destroy the Cade Claw, because that's one of the spots where Cade tries to hide it. And you can see it also clears out anyone hiding near the A chassis. And the next spot you'll want to fuse is kind of here near the coffee machine. And this way you can have it facing north. And when you click your cluster charge, it should clear out anyone by dummies and by the A pillar. Now, if we look at a quick example, obviously Fuse can bring hard breach charges as well to open the split hatch. And because you've fused all of armory, those armory players might end up hiding in split if you leave that hatch closed, and you can trap them in there like that. You can see Thermite has opened the wall. Thermite is starting to plant, and we're waiting in a 3v1 against one defender in throne, and Castle was nice enough to castle off split. So now it's just a waiting game until this last defender either pushes or gets killed. Oh, I thought I got his toes. Next up, we've got Gridlock. She's nice because she has the super shorty. She can actually open the hatches as well to create additional pressure. You can see some nice drone spots as well if you want to help clear the opposite side of the map. But with her tracks, you want to make sure that you put them on yellow, on arcade stairs, and of course on dragon stairs. You want to make sure that all 3 of these staircases are covered. That way you can get a sound cue of someone shooting the tracks or somebody walking through them. And if you want to use your last tracks on split, that can help cover a push if you don't have someone committed to staying on the hatch. Now for Nomad, you'll want to do the same thing. You want to make sure that you're covering these staircases on top dragon. I would put the air jab here. That way, once the defender rounds the corner, they're going to hit the air jab. And if they try to vault over, they'll also hit the air jab. A lot of people put an air jab on that double door, but I prefer clearing all the way to the stairs, because even if there is an air jab on that double door, you can get shot from that hallway. So you can put your air jabs on both yellow and arcade stairs, and those air jabs will pop off when somebody is approaching. And of course, you do have a nice drone spot that you can get here on scaffolding as well, if you don't have a Nomad or Gridlock. Now, if you bring breaching charges on Nomad as well, you can make some nice angles for vertical. So you don't need a dedicated soft breach, but you can see if you put one on the wall, it also destroys the floor if you put it all the way at the bottom. And then at this black briefcase, if you break the briefcase and you put a breaching charge next to it, that'll give you an angle onto the Cade Claw that is usually tucked in this top right corner. Now on Thermite, you can see I've opened the bottom left of that wall, and the reason is because there are holes above and they could potentially impact trick. So this is going to make a smaller breach, but the reason why I'm going far left, you can see I'm walking into the site. There's coverage from that pillar. So you only have to worry about the two angles to the left and the right when you're walking in. There is another nice angle here as well on scaffolding. So if you have someone go prone, you can hold the double door. And this is going to be your ideal plant spot. On top of this box in armory, you can't plant all the way at the back because there's two little lips. So you can plant just at the edge of that gray box. Post plant, you want someone holding the red 90 and someone on the pink 90 as well holding the split, but you should also have someone on the split hatch watching. So lastly, for a yellow take, here's what you want to do when you're starting out. You can see my teammates have droned out a Solus, gave me a clear ping, and then we get a call out that there's one in office. So I know I'm ready for a fight in office, and I can do a quick shoulder peek, and I'm able to get the headshot on the office player. Now that my teammates have droned out, I can start to make vertical. I can fuse the fireplace corner. I can get the mute jammers off the wall, and eventually we'll be able to work down to the site and open up the walls. All right, so for a maintenance and barrels take, you'll want to isolate only half the map vertically and horizontally. I think maintenance is an easier take, but everyone has their preferences. The same concepts apply for these attacks. Because theme is a large map with lots of rooms, you need to drone things out. On the maintenance side, get someone to the control hatch, open it, and sit there. This deters defenders from playing vertical above maintenance when you try to push. Also have someone on top dragon who can hold the mezzanine and protect the push from outside the site door. And you should also have a player in gong holding red 90 to prevent the long peek that could potentially kill the hard breach. The hard breach and EMPs or nades should be in maintenance to get denial off the wall to open the breach. Once the breach is opened, you'll have to either win gunfights or start taking map control towards split. The opposite is true for barrels. You can start by taking above barrels and horizontally in drug or toilets. After working to get the barrels wall open, you can get map control towards bottom dragon to create a pinch or a cross with the barrels breach. You could, of course, use smokes to help cross into the site, but it still relies on winning gunfights against the player or players near the throne. You can see how complicated these types of attacks can get, and they aren't going to be as consistent as a full map clear starting on the top floor. Of course, the goal would be to plant behind the throne and then get outside of the site to wait for the defenders to approach the diffuser and get a kill or stall enough time to win the round. It's much easier said than done though. So here we have an example of a maintenance take. Obviously I'm thermite opening up the wall. It's less than a minute into the round and it's a 2v2. I have flashes so I can flash deep and just check each of these angles before I enter the breach. There is an FNAT up on top of the throne that I didn't see right away. I probably shouldn't be peeking here. I should have just called to my teammates to hold the splits from the breach, and I exposed myself too much. So now I decide I should probably plant. Now after getting the plant down, obviously I know one is near split. My teammate is able to kill that frost, so I throw out a drone and we're able to wait passively for this next player. Here I'm holding a little bit of an off angle, that way the player doesn't necessarily expect it, and after he crosses, I get the kill. Now we'll look into a initiation and office attack with both direct and cross clear options. For the next two sites, I prefer doing the cross clear option, but can understand that they require more teamwork and coordination, which is tough to accomplish in many games. So for a direct take, which would be from cache and control, you basically have to head to the east side of the building, make sure that you open up the control hatch, and try to drone out cache. It's rare that I'll suggest a Monty, but I think he's actually a pretty good operator here to help bring focus away from the other attackers. You can bully your way into cache or into control, and if the defenders have a Mira, then that's going to take a lot of the attention away from the other attackers. Now, when you are doing these direct takes, you have to identify first where you want to plant. Is it going to be in initiation or office? I think personally it's easier to go in initiation with brute force, which is what these takes require. You should also consider taking an operator with smokes and flashes, which a Ying could provide both. The smokes could be utilized to cover up the Mira and make it more difficult for the defenders to see the push. And if you intend on taking initiation, you should do it as quick as possible, because if it stalls out, you'll be prone to flanks from Dragon and C-Force from below in maintenance. Using the Monty, you can push into initiation with support behind him waiting to take gunfights from behind the altar or from the waiting side of initiation. As soon as the attack is able to clear the defender behind the Mira or near the altar, the Monty can continue to push into sight and ward off defenders rotating into the site. This is just one way to do a direct take, but it shows how clustered it can be and how difficult it can be to push into the site head on in Theme Park. Alright, so I'm going to show you an example of how you can take space very quickly. So I've taken an ash, I've opened up the control hatch, and now I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and drone. It's already a 2v4 with 2:15 left. I see the site is clear, so I take action. And I'm able to catch a bandit off guard, and now I'm in the site. Ask someone to watch my drone, but it's already been shot by the bandit, so they can't actually see the door. I hear the alibi, and I swing her, and I'm able to even it out at a 2v2. So now my teammate is calling out that both are in cache. So I'm just going to stay in an ish and hold this kind of cross. I hear the castle moving up on the right side, so I get my cursor ready. And there's the castle, and I do a quick peek and get a nice flick on the Azami. I am on fire today.
Ooh. Oh.
Now, for a cross clear for initiation, this is going to be a more consistent take. It requires droning and taking map control, but you'll start out by droning break room and cafe, and eventually you'll work towards bunks and daycare. If those areas are clear, then take them as quick as possible. If those areas have roamers, or if it's 3 or more people on that side of the map, then you have to think about rotating to the other side and taking the site quickly, like in the example that I'm going to show you afterwards. You can do shot calling as the primary droner if you notice something is off. If there's only a couple of roamers or one roamer on that side of the map, then try to find a way to get multiple angles and gunfights against him so you can pinch him. You can do this by pinching from the hallway hatch. If he's in cafe, you can have someone go cafe door and have someone drop the hatch behind him and work to eliminate that roamer. If he's in bunks, you can have people pinch from cafe, arcade window, and have people on the break windows and the hallway hatch in order to collapse on that roamer. This all involves droning and teamwork, but it is going to be more effective to take that side of the map. After establishing control, have a nomad or a gridlock set up flank on yellow and arcade, or set up 2 drones that an attacker can watch while they're dead. Yeah, like that ever happens. Make sure that your hard breacher and EMPs stay alive, because there's no other way to get the denial off the walls. I think it's easier to open the initiation wall and get a plant down by Buddha, so you should focus your attack on that side. Get that wall open and clear out any defenders and get a plant down. And of course, if they don't make holes on that wall, you can use a thermite to open up the initiation wall from break. Okay, there's one top yellow on the left side. They fully extended. There's 4 over here. Switch it. Let's hit the back. There's 4 top arcade side. They just have the Mira, so let's go cache door fast, Codex. Okay?
Yeah, going. Yeah.
I'm close.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start flashing this side. Just
Sledge it.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
I'm gonna smoke the Mira, and then I'm gonna go.
Oh, I got killed.
Now we're in sight. Let's go.
She's on the Mira.
At the rotate.
On the rotate. One dead other side.
Holding him break.
Another dead. That was the one on rotate.
Yeah, I'm planting. 50 seconds.
Holding break.
75.
On him break. Right side, Mozzie.
You got this. They're both weak. Good job.
You downed one.
Oh, I
Oh, you
downed
downed
him.
him. He was so weak, he downed him.
Good call on the rotate.
That's how quickly you can get shit done.
Good
Yes.
call. Fucking IGL.
Just seen on the old Twitter.
I'm just gonna open breach.
Why is Case in spawn? Can someone please grab Case?
I have a clash.
Yeah, they do have a flash.
Sorry, yeah. Mike, can you grab Case?
That's Fenrir dead.
Or the shield?
I don't have any more nades. I damaged the cage or the flash though.
Flash dead.
Yellow! Top yellow, top yellow.
Can someone come in and plant?
Waiting.
Where and waiting? Dead.
Dead. Last one was top yellow.
I'll kill
Take it,
last.
take it.
You're planting?
I'm just better.
Good job.
Now, for the other second floor site of Bunks and Daycare, obviously we've got the direct and cross takes as well. So for the direct take, it's going to be similar concepts that are going to apply. Direct takes are almost always going to be brute force. In this instance, you can have players go below in drug and try to nade players out of cafe if they're silly enough to play there. More experienced players will play on that shield that I showed you on defense with magnets or ADSs to protect it. Your direct take is going to be players pushing into cafe through the arcade window, coming from arcade and yellow stairs. The hallway hatch is also another point of pressure that you can use. Attackers will win rounds by putting pressure on defenders from multiple points, and pushing from at least 3 of those spots will cause many players to get antsy and move into the sight lines of one of the attackers. A plant in daycare is what you would expect from a direct take, and you can get into daycare and plant behind the train after opening the soft wall in the cafe hallway. Now for a cross take, the cross take is going to be applying the same concepts as the yellow take for the thrown attack, but you won't be making any vertical. Instead, you'll be working to open the walls in initiation and attempt to plant in bunks. Do the same droning process, take the space that defenders give you, and then breach some walls. After the breach is open, have attackers ready to pressure from the break windows, because that is one of the few spots that defenders can hide after the initiation wall is open. Of course, anytime you're on break repel, you also need to have claymores ready for jump outs from maintenance or barrels. Theme Park is one of those maps where there's a lot of aggressive defenders, so you have to be ready from the plenty of windows for spawn peaks and runouts. And for the last site of Drug and Lab, which you're only going to see in unranked and casual, you'll want to do a vertical take. For this site, you can essentially clear out the entire site by taking control of cafe, daycare, and top arcade. Make sure you drone those areas out and try to pinch any defenders that are roaming on the top floor. After taking that control, you can sneak someone into the site and get a plant down at the window or underneath the vertical holes that you made. Post plant can then be held from either outside the window if you planted at the window, or from above if you planted under the vertical that you were holding. Now, you can obviously use time on your side, wait as long as possible before denying any counter defuse attempts. Of course, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this because it's rare that you're going to run into the site, but this is essentially how you'd want to take it. You drone out the top floor, make sure that it's clear. Once it's clear, you take that control, you make vertical, and you try to squeeze the defenders that are playing in the site. And of course, I did mention this earlier, aggressive defenders. So there's going to be a lot of spawn peaks that you need to worry about on Theme Park. I'll quickly run through the defender perspective of all those spawn peaks and all the windows that they can potentially jump out of. So if you're spawning at bumper cars, you need to be wary of the control window because people can actually go inside the windowsill. You have to worry about the maintenance window, the gong door, the dragon window, the teller's window, and a cash door runout. If you spawn at the front gate, then you have to watch out for the break windows on the second floor and the popcorn and barrels window, and of course the control window on the ledge. And teacup spawn is going to be your safest spawn. You only have to worry about the drug window if you go to the right and the bathroom window if you go to the left. If you keep going further to the left, you have to worry about the locker's door, which is a common spawn peak, or the shower's window from the second floor. So there you have it, a complete theme park guide. I want to thank you all for making it this far in the video, because that means you're truly committed to making yourself better and more structured in Siege. Again, I'd love to have all of you like, comment, and subscribe. It means a lot to me. And of course, I have blueprints with callouts for this map in the description for you below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video, which should be Villa. Thanks again, guys.